Rob. Is this when the conferred caption starts, or because I'm not? Oh, here we go. So if you want to see the text, you can just press that CC button in the top left-hand corner. Okay. So, yeah, is that good? And then you could always type, Kevin, if you want to type in messages on the little chat box, Rob's going to try to keep an eye on it because I forget it all the time. And then when he speaks, I'll try to look at it too. So let me just start quickly and show you kind of what we're talking about when we're talking about BioLink's B2B Learning Community. This is a group we've been building over the last year. The yellow names are the names of the programs that have been with us for a year now. And they've been doing this kind of similar process as you are probably going through right now of building something like a bridge program, not necessarily a bridge the way we had envisioned it in the beginning, but a bridge that works for their college, for their target population, for their conditions and their goals. And what we've been doing over the past years, we've been talking about what challenges they're facing. We've been trying to resolve issues together. And we at City College have really stepped back. We're really not feeling like we're disseminating information anymore. We've just been sharing our experience of our bridge and our conditions, and we've been helping with what we know, but we've also been learning a lot from what other colleges are developing, because everybody has their own experience already and is coming in with a lot of really interesting experience and expertise. So we've been sharing that expertise, and that's been very enriching for all of us. So we're still in the first year. We're still figuring out our website, as you probably, if you did your homework, as you probably noticed, it's still kind of under construction. We're figuring things out. But we want to build it with our learning community, and so we're going to be doing some improvements on it. So these colleges, St. Louis Community College, Tompkins Cortland Community College, Atlanta just joined the Clement, and Athens in Georgia has been there for a year, and in Puerto Rico, we also have a Puerto Rico team. And then we just, in June, got a few colleges to join us. We have Bluegrass Community Technical College in Kentucky. We have Manhattan in Kansas. Atlanta in Georgia came back because they haven't been able to participate in their last year, but they were interested in starting again. Salt Lake Community College. And Madison Area Technical College is part of the co-PI team of BioLink, and they've been developing contextualized curriculum before us, and they were the ones who helped us set up our own bridge program. And so they're back to bring in their own expertise, which we're really happy about. So this is just to give you a quick idea, our goals for the Bridge to Biotech. They are all around increasing enrollment in our biotech program, increasing completion of the gateway courses and the biotech courses, retention in those gateway courses. I'm going to talk more about them in a little bit, and diversity in the biotech program. So when I was developing this, I was thinking, I spoke with Bob a couple of days ago, and we were talking about the process of developing your program and your curriculum. And I just thought I'd put together this kind of 3-step thing that you probably all have thought about, and I'm sure you're way past that already. But I just thought one thing that came back after we've been, from our discussions for the past year with all these different programs, we realized that really defining your target population is a very important first step. And we realized as we were working together that we had very different target populations. Even though we all were serving underrepresented students or adult learners, we realized that some people were targeting adult learners that wanted a job experience in a really short term, that had maybe developmental level skills in math and language, or maybe just in math. Some people had a lot of foreign students that were coming back that had already experience in science that really didn't know the English pronunciation for a lot of things, didn't understand the culture and the job culture. And so we really think this is we came back and realized that we hadn't started with that for a lot of us. We started with what's classes we had and what our goals were. So we forgot to really analyze our target population. And as we were working with the different groups, we realized that we really needed to think about what the needs of our target population was, what their academic level was, what is their academic level in basic skills in science, their needs, depending on what their needs are they adult workers and do they need night classes, things that are pretty obvious to some people, and others think that that'll come second actually ends up being something that might be important to look at in the beginning. What access you have to your target population has been a big subject of, a big topic of interest, because you want to make sure that you have a sustainable outreach strategy. Over time, this has become, for us at City College, the biggest barrier to success for the bridge is having a sustainable outreach strategy, because we've been outreach to people in unemployment centers, and this requires coordination time. It requires somebody to do presentations, to follow up with students, and that is really not the most sustainable model for us. So this is something to keep in mind. An alignment with the grant requirements, obviously. I think you are all working on a grant, on the DOL grant, and the selection process or the test used to assess the student's level. We have groups, and I'll show you a little bit more about the different models. Some of them have a selection process at the beginning of their program, and they actually choose candidates out of a pool of applicants. And others will actually take everyone like us because it's the college rules. And we use a test to assess their level, but it's not a mandatory test. And they are still allowed to take the class even if they are under the threshold that we've defined for our program. So keeping this in mind, I wanted to introduce you to our students. They're our Bridge to Biotech students. We have a networking event at the end of the semester, and this is that's why they look so happy. They just had a party. They don't always look happy in class, but they're actually a pretty happy group. There really is a sense of a community for them, and they're really excited to be together in this program. So it really is a nice time usually, but this is a nice picture too. So about our students, for City College in particular, we've been serving mostly low-income adults, and half our students have no prior college education, but half of our students do. And then we have a certain percentage, and I think it's about 15 or 20%, that even have a degree, a college degree. So we're serving all levels at the same time. We have a very, very mixed group. In terms of low basic skills, we accept students that are as low as 8th to 9th grade math and English levels on the test for adult basic education test. And we've had times where we're teaching students as low as 7th grade. I think recently it's been up to a little bit more. But students who test under that level are actually allowed to sign up for the program. And then we have a very diverse population. It's about 20% for African American, Asian, and Hispanic students, and then 42% of our students are ESL students. So the outcomes of our program, we recently did a study with our institutional research group, and they pulled out numbers for us, our researchers at City College, and we found that in terms of continuation, our bridge students are take twice as many units and stay in college longer than other students. 5 semesters after the bridge, there are threefold more bridge students than there are other students in the biotech classes. We found that there are twice as many African American bridge students in gateway courses as non-bridge African American students. And I haven't defined gateway courses here, so I'll do it quickly. The gateway courses are the Intro to Chem, Intro to Bio, or Intro to Biotech courses that students have a hard time getting through, that where there is the lowest retention and the highest failure rate. And this is something that's common for a lot of programs. A lot of the biotech programs need to get their students to these classes. and cannot get them to these classes, they never get back into the biotech program. So they lose a really large portion. We've talked about, failure rates that were as high as 50 or 70%, depending on which colleges we're talking about. And then we found that our pass rates in gateway courses are doubled for Hispanic and Filipino bridge students. We don't find the same difference for other groups, but this is a pretty significant difference. We found double the completion rates of other biotech students for our certificates, and then we were able to get 40% of our bridge internship graduates placed in the life science industry after the internship program. So this is just to give you an idea of the numbers we were able to get in the program. Do you have any questions so far on the target population that you want to maybe talk about?
Can you put any age parameters around what you call adult?
Yeah. You mean for the City College program in particular, right?
As opposed to what? All these other programs across the country?
Well, everyone's serving a different populations. For us, the average age in our program is around 35 or 39 years old. That's the average age. So we have students who are between. We rarely have any students that's under 21 years old, and most of our students and we have students that are as much as 60 years old in our program. But the other program. What's that?
Where's the median? I mean, where are most of the students?
I think they're actually around that 35, 39 as well. Yeah. Okay. Yeah, they're in their 30s and 40s. That's the median.
Okay.
Yeah. We serve mostly we serve very different groups, but we do have a really large group that is working or unemployed and has been working for a long time and is transitioning careers to biotech. So this is a large portion of our population. We do have a certain amount of students who have been kind of getting lost in the college system and not sure where they're going and need a sense of purpose. And this population we've outreached less to, and this is mostly because of the way we outreach to students. We've been outreaching, like I said, to the unemployment agencies, and so we get a larger portion of transitioning population. But we have programs, and I'll show you more about these programs soon, that in particular Gwinnett Technical College is looking to serve more of the students who are getting stuck at the gateway in the gateway courses in chemistry and biology and never get through to biotech, never get through their prerequisites. And so these are younger students, more of the high school students, high school graduates. Any other questions?
How many bridge students do you have compared to your other biotech students?
In the bridge to biotech? Oh, you mean...
So you're saying continuation, you're saying bridge students take twice as many units to stay in college longer than other students. Who are those other students you're comparing?
Yes, good question. So what we did is we matched, we found a comparison group. We matched for basic skills level, for age, for ethnicity, and for prior education in science. So I think the way he did it is that he counted the bridge as one semester of science. So he looked at the students in the gateway courses that had taken one prior semester of science courses, and he matched that. So he defined, we have 100,000 students at City College of San Francisco. So in our intro to chem and intro to biology courses, which were at gateway courses, we have a huge sample size population. So we were able to find a large matching group for that. So they're not biotech students. They're students that are in the gateway courses as well, and that are matched for all these different characteristics I mentioned.
Thank you.
Sure. Any other questions?
Gender traffic, did you divide them in male and female?
When we did the statistics?
Yeah. Or just off the top of your head?
I do have, and gender, yes. Were they matched for gender? Is that what you're wondering?
Yeah.
Yes. Pretty sure. I'll check, but I'm pretty sure they were, yeah. That's a good question, actually. I'll check that, yeah. So then the other step we would recommend doing is looking at the successful practices used in other bridge programs. And so far in the toolkit, we built a Bridge to Biotech toolkit where we wrote down what we thought had helped us be successful in our program in our context. And what we're doing right now is we're having everyone try it out and see, which tools they chose to try out at their campus and how well it's working for them. So we're still in that process of getting feedback because some of the programs are just in the first try, or they're just piloting their programs. But if you want to look at the Bridge Toolkit, you can go to the website, and I think Bob sent you there already. I have this new application sharing. Okay, let me see. I'm going to try to share. I'm going to try to share my screen with you. Okay, you're seeing my email box right now. Are you seeing this the Bridge to Biotech website?
We are.
Okay, great. Okay, so I'm going to take you to our page, which is in the project Bridge to Biotechnology here, and then in the B2B Adopters button here, you can access our pages. So here we have the B2B library where we've stored a lot of resources, and then the B2B laboratory is kind of the area where everybody's posting their current status on their project. And so we've just put up our toolkit, which is here. There's also a link on the left that's curriculum, where you will have access to all our course materials. So if you ever need anything, you're welcome to use it. And then our toolkit again, if I go back to toolkit on the left, Rob's been organizing this for us, and we've organized this with different, what we thought were kind of different categories of things you might be interested in. And if you click on one, for example, in curriculum development, these are kind of the things that we've been doing in our program. We've integrated and contextualized basic skill learning. We've worked on confidence-building curriculum. We've eased transition to college-level coursework. And these are things that you're all probably very aware of, I'm sure. Sometimes there are things that you may not have thought of that might be in there. And I would really recommend that you look at all these different tools. It's always hard to foresee what issues you might run into and what are the things that your students will need until you really develop your program. So this can be a helpful way to prepare and to plan ahead. I have to say that as a science person coming into this, I thought I knew what the students needed, and as I was working with the Bridge, with Rob and the rest of the team, I realized that there were a lot of things that I had never thought of in terms of what students would need, and it was great to have perspective of a language instructor and a math instructor. And I'm going to go back to if I can. How do I stop sharing? That's the question, my screen. Oh, here we go, stop sharing. Okay, so I'm back.
Laurence, while you're going back,
yes.
They all have my password and my login. Is there any reason they should create their own?
Well, there's no reason for them to create their own except for, actually, it would be better for us because we'd be able to know who's using the website for us to track more about evaluating our program. That'd be very helpful for us. The other reason is that we have a forum chat area, and we do a lot of activities there, and it's nice to be able to post your own posting and have your name show up as the person who posted it. So I think for the value of the learning community, as people start really interacting with everyone else, it's nice to have your own identity, and I would really recommend doing it. At first, this is not working, but you're not seeing the webinar anymore, are you?
No, it's just application sharing has stopped.
Yeah. So let me see. Maybe I should just. I'm sorry about this. This is the new whiteboard. Yay! They've just updated their platform and it's beautiful now. I can't complain about it, but I haven't trained myself to use it because I didn't notice it had been updated. So I'll show you a few things about the toolkit that's in the website. Our Bridge program, I'm coming back to the City College Bridge program because it's the one that's been the most extensively developed. We've been doing this for 10 years. The other programs are just starting, and I'll show you what different models exist so you can get ideas. What we've been really emphasizing is we're working on acceleration. What we mean by acceleration, and I think people have different meanings for it, is for us, there's biology or biotech as a center. It's science. But on top of it, there's basic skills as well. And Rob always says it's science plus basic skills. I love how Rob uses that expression all the time. But it's really important. Science plus basic skills, math and language. And for your target, depending on your target population, the math and language might be remedial. And that that helps with acceleration. So instead of asking students to take a prerequisite in algebra and an English prerequisite or an ESL prerequisite and then come into your program, you're compressing this all into one semester and you're losing a lot less students because you know that you have a drop, you have a loss or a leak of about 30% to 20% at least of students from one semester to the other. So that contributes to acceleration. And then the second step is contextualization, and Rob was talking about this in linked courses. So the math and the language course relates to the content in the biology course. And so I'm just trying to do that. Do you see the whole slide on your screen?
Yes.
Yes. Okay, great. Okay. And then the third important thing is the learning community, which we actually built through a peer support system. And one thing that is important in this peer support system is it's all connected to contextualization and to cohorts. Our students go through this program as cohorts. Some of our students are excellent at math. And you would say, you don't need to contextualize math because it starts with fractions. So somebody who's already got a master's degree from their country that have a poor language level, that have a really strong math level, you'd want to let them test out of it because it's one more class, it's a lot of time commitment, and people tend to want to let their students test of it. The issue with this is that students end up connecting a lot less amongst themselves. What we found is that having a strong math student in the math class actually created connections with the lowest performing math students. They would act as TAs and support them. And when they switch and be in the language class, oftentimes that strong math student would actually need the language class more than the other students. And they would end up realizing that, I may have weaknesses, but I also have strengths. I can help somebody out in the other class. And that created a lot more support for each other than competition. And we found that it also helped them build their own confidence when it came to what their strengths and their weaknesses were. And it's been very successful. So we actually advise, based on our experience, again, letting students test out of certain class and actually having these classes run concurrently. The fact that the math is contextualized to science is actually really important. And for even the most advanced students in math, the contextualization piece makes it really worth it for them to be in class. They realize the value of still being there even though they know the basic algebra. And the person who's been tutoring us on contextualized math is Lisa Seidman. I don't know if you know her. She's the author of a few books about biotechnology, lab skills, and contextualized math and math for biotech. Lisa Seidman. And she has been a huge advocate of math, contextualized math, even for students who have a master's degree in biology. She she makes it a mandatory class in her 2-year program at Madison Area Technical College, and she really thinks that she's shown, she has data to prove that her students who come in with a master's degree sometimes don't necessarily know how to do the math applied to lab and to, dilutions or any concentration calculations they might need to do for cell culture or for solution or media making. So, of course, we hope that most students will get an effort to know how to do that. But it turns out that they might not know it in practice because they haven't practiced it. So this is it. And then one thing that we realized was successful also was to link those basic skills course outcomes and the science course outcomes to the gatekeeper classes, the gateway classes that you may be trying to get your students through, and linking the faculty to. So our science instructor is teaching one of the gateway courses in science, and another of the science instructors is teaching a very advanced course in biotech. And so together they can that creates a feedback loop that's, already integrated into the program, and we know how our students do and where they have issues, so we can update our curriculum on a regular basis and address these issues. So this is more in terms of academic preparation, but when it comes to training people for jobs, which I think a lot of you are planning to do through your grants, you are looking to, what we've done is facilitate access for working and unemployed adults. So for us, that was our target population. So we were offering two sections of each class, evening or day. So we had the math, language, and science in the day for the unemployed students. And then we had the math, the science, and the language in the evening. That was for the working students who were trying to transition careers or that just needed to have a full-time job to get through school. It was EBD recognized, which is the unemployment benefits. So they can get unemployment benefits while they're taking these courses. And we also created a 12-credit option so that they could get full financial aid if they need it. So it's financial aid eligible. So the 12-credit option, if you look at that little picture, I don't know how well you see it on your screen. So the Bridge Biotech itself is defined as the math, the language, and the science class. And we've added, and this is in one semester, students can take GMP and GLP. These are very short classes that come afterwards in the second semester, or they can take them on Saturdays. And what we added is in that first semester, the option to take 2 extra classes to train for the internship program. It's a very heavy schedule, I have to say. We're working on a way to make it lighter because it's almost too much for our students. It ends up being a full-time schedule, and for a lot of them, it's hard to do. But it can be 12 units for students who have the time and need the financial aid. So that was helping them. We have a basic skills class and a networking class. In the second semester, they get to do an internship in an undergraduate research project in a research institution or a biotech company. And there's a class, internship experience class that supports them during that time. So we ended up building all of this, and this was over 10 years. This didn't happen overnight. But over time, we ended up building a certificate around this and making all these classes credit-bearing. Some of these classes even counting possibly towards their AS degree, not all of them, but a few of them do. And so this altogether creates the Biotech Lab Assistant Certificate. If they complete an internship and pass all their classes, they can get out of here with a certificate. And then the internship option, I mentioned number 6 with the professional development. And we have a networking component, which I showed you a picture of the networking event at the beginning. It's an event we organize at the end of each semester that also helps us build in, it's a sustainable way for us to do outreach for the program and for students to connect to the industry. And it's been quite successful so far. So at this point, I can take more questions if you want to jump in.
Yeah, I have a question about what criteria are you using to decide if someone needs to be in a bridge program or if they can go directly into the gateway course?
Laurence, can we talk about that?
Yeah, go ahead. Sure.
Yeah, so this is Rob. I'm the language teacher, and we use the TABE test, which is, are you guys familiar with that?
Yeah.
No, but I can...
Yes, so it's a test of adult basic.
Oh, okay.
Adult basic. Yeah. So we use that, and if a person scores relatively high on it and they've had a good deal of prior coursework, we give them the option of starting higher. Oftentimes, if they have a bachelor's degree but haven't been to school in a while and it's not in science, we sometimes let them stay at the bridge level. So it's very much, we don't mandate that they go in certain directions. We simply advise them, and depending. Like we've had people who've had bachelor's degrees in science, but actually the bridge level was a good place for them. So it's the TABE test, and we can. I don't know if it'll work for your population, but I think Laurence, perhaps we can talk to James about what the cut scores are for certain levels, and relay that information to these guys if you guys think it would be helpful.
Right. We've had some of the other programs have used Compass, and actually we have one program who's comparing Compass with I forget there's a third one.
Is it Accuplacer?
Accuplacer, right? Thank you. So I think there's St. Louis Community College, Nancy Kruger is actually working with their statistics students in another program to compare the test scores of students using each of those different assessment tools before and after the bridge, her bridge.
Quick question, does Massachusetts mandate that you guys use a certain placement test?
Accuplacers? But they're not.
Yeah.
But we do them for math and English.
Okay.
So, I guess...
Unfortunately, we don't... Go ahead.
But that doesn't cover their science, I guess, is my...
TABE doesn't have a science.
Right. No, we don't have any tests. No, we don't have any tests for science. Yes, good point. We don't have any tests for science, and we don't know their level unless they've had prior college education. So what we do is we ask them for their transcripts. And we ask them what they've, right? So we just ask them what they've taken before.
Yeah, okay.
Right? So usually it's a mix. It's really a case-for-case basis. So if somebody, let's give an example. We've had a student or two that have had prior science education. We've even had students who've had a bachelor's degree from Brazil, and I'm just thinking of one of our latest students. Bachelor's degree from Brazil, worked in an environmental monitoring lab for 2 or 3 years, and then came here. Her English, not good enough, not feeling comfortable with it, at least her not feeling comfortable with it, and not being very clear on where she needs to go from there and how she can fit back into the job in the work industry here. And so the program helped her in that sense that she worked on her language skills, she worked on all these, on the more of the pronunciation with Rob, right? If I'm saying that for you, Rob, but we're talking about Veronica. And then she was, of course, doing really great in science, but she had never done the type of science we were doing for our internships, which was more, a lot more molecular cell biology based. Okay. And so she was happy with that experience, that she was able to apply those skills for the internship prep. She liked learning how to do mini preps and gel electrophoresis and things she hadn't done in her area as much.
Okay, yeah, thank you.
Sure.
Another question about the test. Have you ever done test prep? Many of these students may not have ever, may haven't put pen to paper or taken a test or know how to take these kind of tests, and that's more the issue than their knowledge. Have you ever run a test prep, like for the Accuplacer, and then have them take the Accuplacer so you get more accurate reading on them?
That's really
good. We
haven't.
Part of my class, this is Rob, the language teacher, part of my class is test-taking strategies, but that's only after they've been in my class for a while. So we perhaps should align our test-taking skills module to not only tests in science classes, but perhaps placement tests as well.
But I think
that's a really good idea. Yeah, that's an excellent suggestion. See, that's what I mean about a learning community. This is the
one other point about learning communities is that so we don't use AccuPlacer, but a bunch of our other schools in the learning community do. So, if you join the learning community, you'll have access to them and be able to email them and ask them, how is AccuPlacer working? What levels do you cut at? Does it work for science, even though it's math and language or math and English? So,
and talking about this is actually a really important hot topic for all of us in this community, in this learning community, because a lot of us are feeling also, there's more and more literature that seems to indicate that the problem is not their knowledge necessarily in math. Students take the prerequisites in algebra as a task, and then they have a really hard time applying it to biotech and to science. And so we're talking in this group about developing more specific tools to actually measure contextualized math levels and aspects of the contextualized language curriculum that might, students might be able to pass the basic language skills, but may have an issue memorizing the scientific terms or understanding a scientific text. So there's an additional dimension to it. But I have to say that doing the test prep before the AccuPlacer is a great idea. We could do it in our classes as a kind of pre-post test, do the tape test at the beginning of class and do the tape test at the end of class. Usually we give our tape test at the orientation when students come in for information. We give them information and then we say, that's before the semester starts, and we say, well, take the tape test and we'll tell you if this program is the right fit for you. And when we do, we rarely have time to train them on anything. This is already much more of a time commitment than they're willing to give a lot of time. So
sometimes depending on funding, that's the way you want. You want to get their low score so you can demonstrate how much you can raise it. So you want their score before you have done anything to them.
I guess so. Well, in of itself, it is it is a lack of knowledge. Not of knowledge, but of skills. One thing that is important is that a lot of these students, as a teacher teaching those students, I can tell you that a lot of those students need a lot of work on study skills, and study skills including test-taking skills. And oftentimes it might not be just one session might be enough for them to be able to overcome that. I think, and that's what they do in the language course with Rob, is they learn how to, you do some test-taking modules, right, Rob?
Sure, but most of my class is focusing on how to improve the processing of the knowledge. Students, as you guys all know, often think that you can go to class and sit there and you'll just absorb it all and be able to bring it back at the test. But they skip that initial, the very important step of processing it. How do you process it so it sticks and so you really know that you got it? So that's what we're getting into quite a bit. And I think, going back to the previous topic, we haven't focused too much on test scores because we felt that TABE was not a good indicator of their scientific knowledge or their preparedness for the field. Of course, for grant funders, they want to see success on an entrance exam. But I think we haven't gone there too much because we're trying to focus more on what skills do they need for the workplace, and the skills in the TABE test are they're a mediocre indicator of what level someone should be at in our program.
But most of the people in this room don't deal with the AccuPlacer so much. They're dealing with them a little after those dev ed classes, but just as a way to accelerate the students into the biotech courses would be to get them out of the dev ed if they don't need it.
Yes.
So I'm going to encourage that we move on because we've got quite a bit to cover here, and we're
thanks.
A lot of time.
Yeah, I'm actually going to cover the rest really fast.
Sure.
I'm just going to go over each slide. I want to talk just about the fact that one of the third big thing that's been coming up in our learning communities when people were developing their programs was the fact that you all have different contexts and limitations, and you're probably talked about this at length this morning. Your administrators may not be as much on board as you wish. You may not be able to create new courses. So a lot of people who see our program with these 3 courses with 2 additional courses are freaking out because this is not something they can do at their college. And so we've had this conversation over and over again, and I'm going to show you different models that people have, creatively come up with to bypass that because they just couldn't get that through at their college. Another issue was, can we collaborate with other departments? Do we have faculty available to teach the classes that we want to develop? That was another issue. People would develop classes and then they didn't find the person that was going to teach it retired and there was no one else to teach it. So that, stopped their development. Jobs they can connect to, the relationships that they have with the industry, all of these things will define how you can develop your program, what type of skills you're gonna teach them, and of course your timeline. So there might be ways to phase into the program that you ideally would like to do. You might have intermediate steps you might be able to do. Sometimes you can't do exactly what you were planning to do. And then one big thing that I have to recommend for someone who had to launch a program on a grant and then continue to work on the program without the grant is the institutionalization piece of the program, especially the classes, the coordination, and the outreach. So these are things that I would just recommend just reflecting on. Quickly, this is our program. I've mentioned it before. We launched it in 2003. It's a full certificate now, but it took time to get there. We've developed classes with transitional studies department and vocational ESL, and Rob's one of those faculty that we are working with, or math faculties from transitional studies, which is adult learning. We have internship placement and industry outreach, and our classes have been institutionalized, not fully, but almost sufficiently that we have a basic program that can roll with that funding. And then outreach is still an issue, which we're working on right now. The next program that I wanted to talk about is so St. Louis Community College is one program that was launched in the spring, last spring. They have a complete certificate also. They called it the Life Science Laboratory Assistant Certificate. We found that the Biotech title on our certificate was actually very working against us for outreach. So they went for life science, which we think was a good move. I think was a good move. They used existing classes, so they had a computer and lab method course that they developed other courses. They had funding and workforce type funding, so they were able to do a lot more than other programs that were in our group. They developed new classes and contextualized language and math, and they built a new separate certificate. So their program is very similar to ours, except they have two groups of 8 weeks, 2 parts in 8 weeks each. And you can look at this further. I know you have the PowerPoint handout for this. Athens Technical College already has a math class contextualized to biotech. They're kind of our resource in the community for math for biotech. They had the Biology 1 science class, and they've been developing the Biotech language class, and they've gone through a lot of different challenges to do that, and they're now an expert at how do you develop a biotech language class when you don't necessarily have the support of the other departments to do that. Wooded Technical College actually did something very different. They took their gatekeeper course, and I'm thinking some of you might be thinking of that. They kept their gatekeeper course, and they took one of the biotech classes that is concurrent with the gatekeeper course, and what they did is they integrated the bridge language and math modules to the existing biotech class. So Phil Gibson, who runs this, is the instructor for the biotech class and is just giving students modules, additional assignments and activities that he's pulling out of Rob's curriculum, and our math instructor, his name is also Rob. So out of both their curricula, and he's integrating it into his class, and he's giving it as a mandatory assignment to the more developmental students, and he's finding that everybody's actually doing it, and everybody's enjoying doing these assignments. So that was an interesting development this year for him. And then at in Puerto Rico, Universidad del Caribe, what they did is they took the biology class, integrated also modules, but they're planning on doing a week-long summer institute, which I think might be going on now, to prepare students on study skills, motivation, confidence building, and some basic skills in math and language. And they're also thinking of building a weekly support class. They also were in that situation where they didn't have a lot of freedom on what they could do inside the curriculum of one class, and they couldn't build a whole new program. So they've had to work around certain complications also. So they're also a great resource for people who are trying to do an alternative program. What Tompkins Cortland Community College did is they had a developmental math and English class that were already offered at the college. They had their science career survey class that was also developed at the college, and they were all offered to developmental students. So what they decided to do is to try to link the curriculum of all these three classes together and ask students to go through them as cohorts if possible. And they decided to add one biotech lab class that was very, very basic. And with this, they're hoping to outreach to a really large population that is already at the college. They're looking at this is called the Bridge to Science-Related Careers, because they want to outreach to the nursing students who are not getting through the nursing classes or are waiting to get into the nursing program. And they want to offer them other opportunities, because their issue is that people are not aware of the biotech, the opportunities in biotech. So with this, I'm going to stop talking. I've showed you the B2B toolkit and the B2B Learning Community online. So I'm going to just stop talking because it's already 11 and let you ask me more questions. And Rob, tell us about your difficulties or anything that you want to talk about.
So this is Bob, and let me tell you that in this room we have 4, 5 schools, and each of them is in a different place with a different set of problems. So there's no common. It's just like your nationwide experience. We can parallel that with a statewide experience. But there's some really interesting pieces that I think you just uncovered as you went over the variety of models. And sure, there are probably some questions about each of those models, but that was a great list of schools, and the different approaches they're each taking is really interesting.
Great.
So, are there any questions?
I have a couple programmatic questions, and I'm specifically biotech. Why are the unemployment centers unsustainable for you as a place to get students? And if that's so, where are you getting the 35-year-olds?
So your question was, why is the unemployment field area and not very sustainable for outreach, right? And the second is, where are you getting all the 25-year-olds?
35, you said 35 is a big part.
Oh, yeah.
Where are they coming from?
Well, they are coming from unemployment. We're still doing it.
Okay.
The reason why we feel it's not sustainable is that in order to go and find these students, we need to go to the we have one-stop centers for unemployment, right? And we do presentations there once a week in different areas. So we alternate in different offices. So we have a coordinator who does that, and that has been difficult to fund from a funding perspective, right? So when our funding runs out, there's no way, we don't have built-in coordinator positions at City College. That's the way, in our environment, that's what's making it complicated. There are colleges where you can have a coordinator or a faculty get credit for doing things like that. We are not in that situation. So
I can also speak
go ahead.
Sorry, Laurence. I can also speak to that as well. So I think we found that I think when we first started the program, we thought, there's all these unemployed people. We can get them to go into biotech. But we do get some people from there, but it's not the pot of gold we thought it would be. for the amount of time it takes to go there and do the outreach, it's sort of worth it, but not really. And I think the issue is that I think it's been a little bit of a hard sell to sell biotech to unemployed workers, because a lot of people don't really, like, as opposed to nursing, everybody's seen a nurse before. But I think a lot of people think, well, biotech, I'm not sure what that, I'm not sure I can do that. It's a mystery, exactly. So it's been a little bit difficult for us to do that at EDD. I think in the past 3 years or so, we've been trying to focus much more on in-reach than outreach, realizing that we have all these students at our school already who are struggling in the gateway courses, who could drop down a level, take our program, increase their academic skills and math skills with contextualized programs, and then go back and take the gateway and succeed. And those students are already sort of sold on science careers, and we don't have to do so much persuading.
Or at least go to college.
Yes, exactly.
So that's your sustainable outreach strategy is in-house.
Exactly.
And I think so.
Our issue is that because our college is so large, we've had issues with getting our counselors on board. There's so many programs offered at City College that ours is a really small part of what students can go to. And so our counselors also are lacking the information and education, even though we've really been trying to work with them. So one thing that really helped us is we recently got another funding source to help, and they pushed us, and they almost forced us to go work with the counselors and to pay a counselor part-time and pull her out of the counseling office and have her work with us on site. And until now, we had been working with CBOs for 6 years. For as long as I have been there, we had been working with CBOs, and it hadn't been successful at all. Mostly because
high school?
With high schools, very difficult also.
Okay.
Really hard time to work with high schools. But that's for us, that's in our situation. And so the counselor from City College we got on our team, this has changed things because she has her ins into the counseling office, and she is with us trying to figure out why we're not getting any students from counseling. So that's been huge, and that's something I highly recommend, even though we were against it. If you have funding for that, I really recommend it.
So I have a question around your Biotech Lab Assistant Certificate.
Uh-huh.
For that to be a credible financial aid eligible certificate, jobs have to be readily available at the end of it. Am I right?
I'm not sure that's the case in California. Rob, do you know if that's the case? I would say not. But
I don't know how. I know, of course, the state chancellor's office has to approve all of our certificates and degrees, has to go through state curriculum committee and stuff like that. And I'm sure that they look into the labor market and decide whether there's actually jobs for this certificate to make sense, so that it's not a dead end. But I can't exactly confirm that.
Okay.
Yeah.
I guess with that, I was maybe doing more of an introduction than I needed to. But I guess my real question is, do they find viable employment at that if they stop then? Yeah.
That's a big question for learning community in general, for all our bridge programs, depending on the area you're in. I think Massachusetts seems to me like it's a nice hub for life science and biotech, but you might have the same problem, and you probably have the same problem we have, is that we're competing with Stanford, UC Berkeley, UCSF, and San Francisco State University.
MIT and Harvard.
Right? Obviously, we have the same problem. And so what's been really hard and that's been my job, is the industry outreach and convincing people from the industry and from academic labs that there's a value to having students to having these students at least even just do an internship in their labs. Why would I take her? I mean, why would I take your City College students when I have 2 UC grads or 2 UC Berkeley undergrads waiting to come in? And the answer is that, and it's been a long road, I have to say, but we've finally been successful. And what we're trying to do is we're trying to promote, first, the fact that we're trying to change the face of life science and biotech and make it more diverse, but also because these undergrad students that come from UC Berkeley and Stanford, and that's my biggest pitch, all want a very defined project and they want to be able to cover all these different skills over a small amount of time. And they want something that they can run with and they can have fun with. In this situation, it's very different. These students want skills that are marketable. And if you're going to be the one in charge of placing them for jobs afterwards, you want them to get those marketable skills. So our whole internship experience is really targeted towards, even if that student comes in every day to change the medium on your cells, to pass your cells in the lab, and after they're a little bit more confident and you're more confident of their ability, then start doing a little bit more of those, assays or anything with your cells, then these students have gotten basic lab skills that define what a lab assistant position is about. It's about making medium. It's about taking away the biohazard trash. It's about changing the medium on the cells using sterile techniques. And for these students, it's already a lot to learn. They don't have a background in science. So they want something that's repetitive, that they can just brush their skills on, and that they can build confidence on. And sometimes, right? So that the labs don't know that they need it, but they really need it. They have postdocs doing this. I used to do this. And this is a waste of time. This is something that would be much better at use for a student. So it is a lot of work, and if you have one centralized person that can do that work for all of you, then you're going to do a lot more progress. And I have to say the second thing that really helps is the networking events, is just increasing awareness. We were talking about outreach earlier for students. It's increasing awareness about biotech and maybe getting rid of that biotech title sometimes and talking about life science careers. But also increasing awareness in scientists about the students at City College and what they're capable of doing and how they can help them in the lab. And our networking event, we have a poster session where our interns present their work, their scientific posters. And what I've been doing is I've been asking industry people to come and judge these posters. This is the only way I got them to come and pay attention to us. And little by little, some momentum's been building, and it's been very successful.
Great idea.
We also have, I have to say, we also have mock job interviews to get the recruiters in. So our students practice job interviews in front of these recruiters, and once in a while, one of the recruiters will choose 2 or 3 of those students for a job the following semester. And I have to say, I just realized that's how you get people to commit. You don't tell them that they don't have anything to do. You ask them to do something. By giving them a role and a function, people actually feel engaged in your program. That's how that was a breakthrough for me.
Brilliant. Are there other questions?
I have just one more about, have you ever recruited any students who already have a BA or a BS and the certificate will help them get into the industry? And so they get in the program and do that?
Absolutely. We do it all the time. And I have to say it's been a big problem for our funding, because most of our funders want us to serve the most at-risk students, the most underserved students, right? These are the developmental students, and you know that you're going to have a really, really hard time placing these students in labs and in jobs.
Go ahead.
Yeah, the amount of soft skills development that you're going to have to do with these specific students is huge. And the amount of legwork you have to do, if your only population in your class are these students, unless you have a really great connection in the industry, you're going to have a really hard time placing them. But if in the same classes you have more advanced students that only need, like I was mentioning about our student Veronica, who only need help with their English, right? They come from Russia or Brazil, they have a degree, they've worked in the industry, maybe even, and they only have really poor English or just not great English. And they just need that semester to understand the American culture, to get back to understand how English works and how classes in America work. Then these students will be the students you can place in the more advanced internships, especially when you're developing relationships with the industry and with labs. You want your first students to be a success, because one failure, and most of the time those people won't come back, and it'll spread around that student, right? So having that really brilliant student that, needs a little bit of support and push, and the mentors are still feeling like they're getting a different student and they're helping them out. that's okay. And then that opens the door for another intern that if you identify a good mentor, then you have a spot for an intern that can only do biohazard waste pickup and glassware washing. That's the only thing you feel you could ask them. They have to work on their soft skills, and that's the only thing they can do for a semester. But then they'll have built their skills, and they can go for those lab-based positions that no one else wants. And then little by little. So you're serving very different types of population. That's what I mean about your target population needing definition in the beginning. That's a very important piece, I think.
Do you have a job description written for that intern that you would present to one of these places for, someone who's going to be taking out biohazards and doing the basic stuff, and say, how about someone that does this?
I rarely do it this way. I have a page on our website, and I'll send you the link if you want on our City College website about what types of skills and the breadth of skills that students have and the different levels that they have and how they can, serve those labs. But what I really do is on an individual basis, I talk to the mentors. That's why it's really important to have an industry outreach person. I talk to the mentors one by one, and we talk about what are their needs. And I hint, well, would you rather have somebody who comes and just does medium-free solutions? Is that the type of, right? And do you have a need for a glassware washer and biohazard waste pickup? And so depending on how they respond, then we'll define what type of student I can place in that lab. I think also the really important thing is the type of mentoring and personality of the person. So depending on, you have to have a psychology degree, I think, for this, which I don't have. So Bob can help you, I think.
Okay, I'll do my best.
But I think there's a lot of psychology there where you're talking to the person, trying to figure out what type of expectations they're going to have with those students. And if they're going to be somebody who's very, expecting a lot and demanding a lot out of their students and doesn't have space for tutoring and mentoring and support, you're not going to send those soft skills deprived students out there. You're going to send the more adverse students there. So all this to say that it really depends on the personality of the person on the other side.
Thank you.
Laurence, I can't thank you enough for the time. And Rob, thank you for your insights.
Sure, our pleasure. It was great talking to you guys.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. Goodbye.
Bye.
Bye-bye.
Kevin, are you still on? Okay, so the answer to your question is no, our internships are not paid anymore, but they used to. And until we ran out of funding, they were unpaid. Having paid internships makes things a lot easier. But it's turned out that we've had we thought we'd have less students after the internship stopped getting paid, and we actually kept getting as many students in the program. So because they get EDD, they can get unemployment and they can get financial aid. It turned out that the most at-need students were still able to come to the program. Does that answer your question? Sure. Well, maybe I'll know your voice someday. If there's anything else I can help out with, let me know. Sure, no problem. Okay, so I'm going to log off and close captioning. We're done. Thank you very much. I'm going to stop recording.